Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest in the INFUSE series of webinars hosted by Send. This month, we're looking at the question of AI. 2025, is that the year that AI goes mainstream? We have a panel assembled today to discuss that, coming from a diverse set of backgrounds and experiences to look at questions like how AI moves beyond vision, moving into daily operations, and strategies for overcoming implementation challenges, practical work, and the future of augmented underwriting. Where is that going? So I'm very pleased to welcome to the stage our three panelists today. The first is Laurence Brulliet, who's Head of Customer and Partnerships at Sixfold. Welcome, Laurence.
Hi, glad to be here.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, great to be here today. I said I'm Laurence. I manage the customers and partnerships teams at Sixfold. And Sixfold, we're an underwriting AI solution helping underwriters make better, kind of more efficient decisions on the day-to-day. So definitely have a lot of experience in the last couple of years working with insurers to implement AI in some core workflows.
Great, welcome to the panel, Laurence.
Thanks.
Second up, we have Paul Armstrong, who's lead architect in UK and Ireland for Amazon Web Services, also with a background in insurance. Paul, welcome to the stage, and introduce yourself.
Hi, Tony. Thanks for having me today. I'm Paul Armstrong. I'm the lead architect for Amazon Web Services, and we're a cloud provider, and we've been providing cloud services, particularly with a big focus on data and AI, to help large enterprises run at scale and pace to adopt this new technology. And I've been doing that now for sort of the last 9 years at Amazon Web Services. So thanks for having me here today.
Oh, very welcome to the panel. And our final panelist is Johnny McCord, CEO and founder of Loadsure. Johnny, welcome to the stage, and introduce yourself.
Tony, thank you for having me. Delighted to be here. Yes, as you said, I'm Johnny McCord, CEO and founder of Loadsure, and we provide what we call holistic freight protection. And what that does, it empowers the supply chain businesses to adopt best practices with actionable insights, risk mitigation advice, but also protects them from loss through our wide range of data pad insurance products, and also supports the recovery of losses with what we believe to be the industry's fastest claims solution. Delighted to be here.
Excellent. Well, welcome aboard. So let's get started. I would like to start off by just examining where the insurance industry has got to so far with the deployment of AI. I mean, as an industry, we are very conservative. So I'm pretty well assuming that we're going to be behind the curve of some other industries and the capabilities with the technology. Maybe I can give that first question to you, Laurence. Where is the insurance industry today with the adoption of AI?
Yeah, definitely. So I agree definitely that the insurance industry in some ways is more conservative, but I think particularly in the space of big data, data science, ML, the insurance industry has actually been on the forefront for many years. And I think we're seeing that with generative AI and AI overall, where it's adopted it maybe faster than some other sectors. If we're looking at, what were some of the initial AI predictions for the use cases after GPT launched in 2022, I feel like 2023 across the board, the focus for AI was definitely around chatbots, maybe customer service, maybe some small internal use cases. And I feel like other sectors kind of remain in that space. Whereas in 2024 into now 2025, we're seeing the insurance industry really look at how they can expand use cases for AI into some core business processes, things like claims, underwriting, and really kind of looking at really how they can bring AI to their day-to-day workflows and really embrace the fact that it could be a big unlock for a lot of the challenges that we've faced for many decades.
Oh, interesting. So Paul, you're obviously working with a whole series of different insurers doing various things. What are you seeing?
I think we're seeing mixed adoption, if I'm honest. It's sort of, and to be fair, this is across industries as well. I think this is such a disruptive technology that people aren't really sure how to adopt it in the appropriate way and with the appropriate controls. So we're seeing a lot of experiments. One of the interesting parts of my role is actually convincing people that a lot of their use cases aren't actually Gen AI, and actually there are more appropriate solutions in terms of solving problems. But the fact that we're having the conversation, I think, is a really good thing. So what I think we're seeing is still quite a lot of experiments. Interestingly, we're seeing quite a lot of proof of concepts not going into full-scale production, because what we're finding is people are either putting in the wrong use cases, or actually they're not comfortable with the controls and the guardrails around the adoption of the technology. But I think we're starting to overcome that, and definitely this year we're starting to see a lot more production scale use cases, and definitely starting to see wider scale adoption across customers.
Johnny, would you say you're seeing the same thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, the other day I was reading Gallagher Re's InsurTech report, and it highlighted that over 63%, I think it was, of InsurTech deals went through into AI-centered InsurTechs in, I think it was Q3 of 24 alone. And, that just shows how much investment is coming into AI within the InsurTech space and within the insurance industry. And, the projected, size of the sort of global AI in the insurance market is meant to reach around 80 billion by 2032, I think it was. So, there's a huge amount of investment coming in, and certainly the way that the technology is advancing and the speed at which it's advancing is incredible.
So what you're saying to me, I think overall, is that as an industry, we are embracing this technology, but we're doing it carefully and making sure that within the realms of governance and guardrails and whatever, we're stepping carefully to make sure that whatever gets delivered in a sensible way, in a careful, regulated industry, a conservative industry, that we're actually delivering it in the way that maybe the regulator would want and maybe the marketplace and customers want. That's quite interesting. I've always had the perception with the technology that I've been involved with and seen over the years that there'll be a reticence about embracing new technology, but you're telling me a different story there. So that's an interesting position of where we've got to so far. What do we think is the vision for the future? Paul, what do you think about the future?
Well, I think the reason things are moving probably at a faster pace than we've seen before is that we're seeing a lot more direct business engagement into these technologies. These aren't IT-led initiatives anymore. People are getting hands-on with the technology, and I think with this excitement we're seeing in the immediate term, we're seeing there's two sides that we're probably seeing, which is improvement of efficiencies, document processing type use cases, intelligent document handling are definitely things that we're seeing becoming more and more mainstream and more common. And there's been a lot of discussion around customer comms and interactions via different channels, including chatbots. I think as this progresses, you're going to see more involvement with computer vision and multimodal type workloads, where you start thinking about imagery, you start thinking about voice, the analysis of all of these together. And that long-term vision then is about these fully automated ecosystems. You'll hear a lot of talk at the moment about agentic workflows and how you can start to have multiple AI agents running across your organization. But what you're trying to get to is this vision of highly efficient, data-driven processes that are combining automation with human expertise to provide more accurate assessments and pricing while improving that customer experience. That's ultimately where I think we're going to get to in the next 12 months, I would say, is where you'll start to see this happening.
Interesting. Johnny, what's your view?
Yeah, I mean, I think that definitely resonates in terms of as we're seeing things kind of move more towards some of the areas like pricing and things that I think probably are not where we first thought that AI would go, but that as things are moving quickly, folks are embracing that. And I think one of the most useful pieces of advice that I've heard in terms of like how to think about where the future of AI can really be is really thinking about where would you kind of have deployed bodies. Think about sort of maybe you have a team of folks and you're giving them tasks and you're kind of instructing them on how to do those tasks and you're checking their output and really thinking about how you can empower most folks in your organization to really think about AI in that way. How are they like a team of individuals that they can deploy to help them do more work in their day-to-day? And same as you would have it before, instructing those folks, those AIs, whether it's agents or even just other tools, on what's the task that I need, kind of what are going to be your inputs, what are going to be your outputs, and like kind of checking over that work. And I feel like that really opens up, when you think about it that way, like the possibilities of where you could be applying those AI tools. Okay,
so not necessarily the exciting areas, but the areas that are going to give you bang for your buck, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it depends on your definition of exciting. Like, wow, that's so exciting, because that can be really so many things, and it becomes much more flexible and like works a lot more for you in your day-to-day. I think when you're thinking about it that way.
Yeah. So Johnny, you're working in almost entirely digital environment within your business. What are you seeing?
Yeah, obviously from our own personal experience, we're implementing AI in a very sort of controlled way, for us to grow sustainably and efficiently, obviously using AI around our workflows with regards to risk transfer, which is our center pillar of holistic freight protection, and that's our digital MGA, but also continuing to utilize AI around our claims process, especially around fraud detection and customer communication as well. Customer support in insurance is essential, and seeing the development of that with the chatbot environments and the AI agents to support that customer service piece. There is obviously some hesitancy around AI and in that relationship piece of insurance, which is is very much a relationship game, but obviously seeing how AI is really making all departments within any organization more efficient and effective.
Okay, so you've obviously you got your hands on it, and from a practical point of view, what are the strategies for overcoming some of the practical implementation challenges that AI brings when you're putting it out there?
Yeah, we sort of look at it in buckets. Obviously, there's the cultural bucket, there's the operational bucket, and these are also the structural buckets as well. And these are all barriers, and you certainly need to overcome it. Obviously with the cultural aspect, and particularly in traditional or incumbents, addressing the fear of job displacement is obviously something that has to be carefully communicated, how AI is going to augment the human capabilities, but actually it's more about supporting and enabling human capabilities and making ones more efficient. Obviously you've got to trust the AI, build and drive that data-driven culture, which has to be led by the leadership, which is obviously something that we very much lead, and make sure that we're efficiently having that sort of change management and communicating strongly around AI and the initiatives and the value it brings, either big wins or small wins. Operationally, need to obviously make sure you have the right skill sets, address those skill gaps, etc. One of our biggest hurdles that we've had to overcome is obviously data quality and governance, ensuring that we have robust data management around that piece. And not quite so much for us, because we're greenfield, we're 6.5 years old, but obviously integrating AI within legacy systems is obviously something that is certainly complex within the legacy systems within the traditional insurance market. And then obviously the structural barriers, making sure that you're building the right team. There's a lot of products out there that ultimately are smoke and mirrors, and making sure they're actually going to enable one to be far more efficient and effective. And also, for us, building holistic freight protection, it's not about necessarily doing it by oneself. it's the strategic partnerships, that license versus build aspect. There's a lot of partnership play, which is so important. But yeah, I think our biggest challenge in deploying AI is all about that data quality and the consistency, and making sure that the high resolution data that we utilize is clean and it's reliable. And unfortunately, the insurance data that is readily available is often incomplete and unstructured. So it's all about pre-processing that data and being able to use AI itself to standardize data, and partner with those external partners and providers to add that additional source of data. For us, it's around weather data and crime data, etc.
So, I mean, you've covered a lot of ground there in that reply, and there's a huge number of challenges, clearly, from a practical implementation point of view. In fact, we've had a question coming through asking about legacy systems and the Lloyd's BP2 being delayed. How do you see the industry adopting AI for efficient underwriting in those kinds of environments? Paul, do you see legacy being a big issue for the implementation of AI?
I think legacy is an issue, but actually what we're seeing is AI is actually helping with the problem of legacy, because we're seeing more and more adoption now of using tooling to assist with the modernization pathways of legacy systems. So actually what you're starting to see is people looking at using the technology to adopt and transform existing systems to then use the data to augment the new processes. So yes, legacy is an issue, but I think the tooling and the approaches for modernization are going to change quite significantly over the next 12 months.
That's interesting. That's got to be of interest to our audience, because they'll all have some legacy somewhere, and that legacy estate is what holds back us as an industry. Lawrence, are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah, I think definitely that resonates a lot in terms of particularly your point, Johnny, of kind of insurers looking to adopt AI, but feeling maybe a little bit constrained about, the current state of their data, and not necessarily yet having their full arms wrapped around like what their data looks like. But then also on the flip side, I think the idea of like using AI to help you kind of modernize the data sets, better understand those data sets, be able to bring some structure to what has historically been highly unstructured data sets. I think as kind of folks are starting to see how AI can really help you across the value chain and start to organize your data to then be able to make use of more AI tools, you kind of see some of these challenges that historically would have been like total blockers now actually become not as much of blockers and more like hurdles that are tackleable with the right tools. But like you said, Paul, I think you really have to think about what's the right tool for my use case, and really kind of putting that thought up front so that you're applying the right one and you're kind of not going down a wrong path.
Yeah, AI is not just one amorphous mass; it's a whole series of different things. Yeah. So I just wanted to get onto the cultural issue, because Johnny touched on it a little bit in his reply there. There are, should we say, mature managers in the industry who've grown up with processes that they know and love. What are the incentives for those mature managers to change their processes? Paul, what do you think?
Well, I think what we're seeing is that the reality is that people will be more productive using AI tooling, full stop. So if that's the reality of the situation, if your teams aren't adopting the new technologies, they are going to fall behind. And you're going to start to see that come through. And I think the key thing about the positioning of this change and where we're seeing it adopted as well is very much this is not a threat, but an opportunity. And I think where we're seeing that it really adopted and is changing the way that you think about the technology to say this is not about replacing what you do today. It's about accelerating it and making it more efficient, which then really allows you to focus on the critical aspects of your role, whatever that may be. So what we're seeing, it's about augmentation rather than replacement. And the mental model that we're regularly using, this is about augmenting and amplifying, not replacement. And what you will find is then that the roles will start to change because you're really focusing on the value add and you're removing the non-differentiating aspects of the things you do day to day.
Okay. Lawrence, Johnny, do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, I think oh, go ahead, Johnny. Go for it.
No, well, I can agree more with what Paul just said. You know, it is a, you know, the market paradigm is shifting. There is awareness that there is needed to adopt to be more efficient and more effective. And you know, at the end of the day, you know, in commercial insurance, you know, is still very much relationship driven. So how do we empower the operational aspects to be more efficient and effective to drive those relationships? And I generally believe that there is, you know, significant adoption and understanding towards that now. You know, I think I reflect back to when I first founded LoadSure, and probably the year before, I spoke to one of my mentors who is a senior figurehead in the market, and you know, I ran my business plan past him, and he was like, Johnny, you know, if you don't embrace this change, your generation are going to be left behind, because there's a younger generation coming through, there's advancements in technology, and it will completely leave you behind. So, yeah, I think there is a realization.
Does that affect your hiring strategy when you're thinking about new people you're going to bring into your, you know, growing business?
Does it? Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's you know, obviously you need your subject matter experts and that experience around especially from an insurance model, but then it's marrying the two with the modern technologies. You know, we've always had a bit of a challenge around sort of our insurance product and embracing that into our ecosystem product. And it's quite hard to align when you've got those expertise that are from very different worlds. But yeah, certainly it's a fine art to bring the two together.
Okay, Laurence?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think kind of, Paul, what you said of it's about not replacing but augmenting sort of the things that folks are currently doing really resonates, because that really is sort of like, I think, part of the shift that we've seen, where a lot of the conversation moved away from how can we totally automate things and how can we replace whole processes that are currently done manually with full automation, to actually how do we think about how we kind of take those interim step and really augment the work that folks are doing as opposed to fully automating. And I think
whenever, can I ask you then, you know, when it comes to that sort of the future of augmented underwriting, as I think you're describing it, where are the big wins likely to be found?
Yeah, I think kind of looking at your business process and looking at really any tasks that are, you know, probably currently done by humans, and really thinking about yourself, like, what about this made it that we designed it so that it had to be taken on by these human resources, and like how can we basically help them kind of become more exponentially efficient. And I think that where we are seeing kind of a lot of success in terms of working with carriers who are implementing AI is when they're really kind of willing to go sort of like to the drawing board with that, of really taking a step back and looking at like the full picture and embracing like where are there areas where I've historically just been really frustrated because it's just linear growth, right? It's like, if I need this to be more efficient, I just need to add more people, versus in this case, how can you think about using AI tools to make those individuals, they're just that much more efficient, and kind of tap into that exponential growth.
Okay. Paul, your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So it's an interesting one, I think, in terms of where do you think the biggest gains are going to be found? I think it's about efficiency first, and I think efficiency and better data quality are going to drive better outcomes in terms of better customer experiences. And I think it's really playing on Johnny's point. It's a people business and a relationship business. So giving people better tooling and better supporting processes will enable that to really become the key focus. So I think what we're seeing predominantly so far is we're seeing driving of efficiency in processes of certain steps of a process. You know, the people that are taking the technologies well, for example, taking document capture and analyzing documents and summarization, examples like that are very, very simple use cases with the technology now, but can have a huge impact on the downstream processing. So I think that's where we're going to see the focus in the short term.
Okay, so we do have a question come in. I guess it's from somebody who's in the cyber area, but they've said, since cyber and particularly AI comes with risks, how we're prepared to face AI-related risks as we have limited amounts of past events data, how AI will help in triage and risk scoring for cyber and AI risks, so that underwriters have confidence in writing these risks. Anybody like to comment on that?
I can take that. We do actually, with a Sixfold, which work with quite a few kind of cyber carriers who are, this is very top of mind for them about how AI will change the cyber business and how we think about cyber risks. And I think one of the things that we've seen there is like really the benefits of like how quickly adaptable AI can be. And it really enables you to kind of continuously like look at your underwriting guidelines, incorporate changes in your underwriting guidelines, and like accelerate that change management aspect, which again may not be the most exciting on the surface, but you think about all the effort that kind of goes into onboarding underwriters into new guidelines, and if you kind of have the right AI tools to help accelerate that, bring kind of those guidelines more in their day-to-day, you can really help them kind of be more on top of and reactive to like the evolving AI and cyber risk. But it is definitely very top of mind in that space of there's a lot of unknowns that we'll probably be encountering in the coming years.
Most certainly true. Paul, Johnny, what do you think?
This is a massive topic where we've got very little time, I think. But I think risk and threat modeling will continue to evolve with the new tooling. And I think what we're seeing is the responsible AI adoption has to have the appropriate security controls in for the use cases that you're adopting. So I think what you're going to see is a maturity of your risk assessment processes and a maturity of the tooling behind them.
So steady as she goes, make sure that you don't make any big mistakes. Yeah, I mean, I'll give the example of a tier one insurer who decided to look for use cases within their staff, gave them all access to ChatGPT and all the internal systems to facilitate that. Unfortunately, a couple of ne'er-do-wells within the organization decided to use it as a means by which they could find out how much everybody was paid. So they had to remove the whole thing and close it down. So there's always a downside. You have to try these things out. You find out what works and what doesn't work, and you do it carefully. Okay, well, look, we've only got a few more minutes left. So before we go, I'd like to finish with asking each of you to tell us the one big thing you would like everybody to remember about this webinar. If they saw you in a couple of weeks' time and they said, I saw the webinar, I thought it was great. And you said, what do you remember out of that? What would be the one big takeaway that you'd want? Laurence, what would yours be?
Yeah, I think, it's one that we also kind of have to remind ourselves every day, is just becoming more comfortable with the fact that AI will fundamentally change our business processes. And there is a lot of opportunity in that. But I think to Johnny's point, it's really important to think about what are the right partners to work with whom to do that.
Excellent. Paul?
Well, I think become AI and data literate at all levels of your organization. This technology is not going to go away. So really start looking at it, getting hands-on with it yourself, challenge your ways of working to see how you could use the technology differently.
And where do they go for that help, that education?
At all places. I mean, the thing is, start with the technologies you have. It's such a big question, isn't it? Of course you can come to providers like ourselves, but the point is, go out and look and see how the technologies are being used. Ask questions, be curious about it, try and get hands-on with the technology, and actually try to develop those capabilities.
I think that's a really good point. Be curious and delve into it. Sticking your fingers in your ears and saying, la, 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 it's not going to happen to me is not a sensible strategy. Thanks very much for that, Paul. Johnny, what's your one big thing?
Yeah, I think this is really aimed at the cynicism of the traditional market at times, but it's undeniable that AI is no longer just a futuristic fantasy. It's a very, very powerful tool that is actively shaping out the insurance world and accelerating the way that we go about it from an insurance operational standpoint. To remain competitive and agile and successful, we need to adopt artificial intelligence, and otherwise, to my point earlier, you will be left behind.
Okay, really good point to finish on. Well, look, thank you very much indeed to our panel. There's been a lot of really good stuff in there, and I would actually recommend to the audience that although you've listened to this for the last 30 minutes, it may be worth going back and listening to the replay, because there are so many diamonds within our conversation today. So look, I want to thank the panel. Thank you very much. Thank our audience for attending today. I'll just remind everybody that our next webinar is going to be, our May one is going to be on the 14th of May, and the subject is going to be data, data, data. I guess everything that underpins AI. So it's in the right order. So on that note, I will say thank you to everyone, and I'll see you next month. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.